Hi everybody, this is Steve Frenzinger, or Coach Steve Frenzinger as many call me. The topic today is blind spots in our career. We've all heard the saying that what we don't know can hurt us. Well, I can tell you after 30 years as an executive coach that what you don't know about yourself will hurt you. Blind spots, what are they? They're baggage that can slow or even stall your career growth. Envision yourself running a race while carrying or dragging a 50-pound suitcase behind you, and that's the image of baggage. So, how do you identify blind spots? Well, blind spots are discovered via feedback, and feedback is gained through various assessments that you can run to give you that feedback. Assessments can be in any number of forms. They can be a branding survey of others, a personality type questionnaire, some mindset self-analysis, a review of your visibility in the industry, and whether you're, considered talent or toast, as we sometimes say humorously, on people's efforts to be better known. And then simply the accountability on being on a journey and having goals and interim steps to complete. So those are the core 5 assessments that I do in my program to identify blind spots. Again, via feedback gained through assessments. By the way, I use acronyms a lot to remember this stuff. So BFA for blind spot via feedback gained through assessments is my way of always remembering that. BFA. I'd have some other definitions too. What the hell, I'll share it. Sometimes I call it big effing aha, which it was for me years ago. Keep in mind that feedback, to be effective, has to be comprehensive. It has to be timely, and it has to be actionable. If you think about it, feedback has to be rather specific, so it's comprehensive when you can make it specific, either an individual situation or event where something occurred. Has to be timely. It doesn't do any good to say, hey boss, 6 months ago you said this and it really ticked off a bunch of people. So timeliness is important, and being actionable is a point that I want to make, is that I have found that the majority of blind spots fall into various categories and are pretty easy to address. And that's what I mean when I say actionable, because blind spots are often thought, and feedback in general is often thought of something that is negative, but in reality, feedback sort of fits into 3 categories. It can confirm a strength. Secondly, it can identify a strength that is underutilized in your repertoire. And thirdly, it can identify something that is a problem that needs to be addressed. And the good news there is that I've discovered through all these years of coaching that most negatives are pretty easily addressed. I mean, small adjustments allow for big impact on things when you get feedback. I mean, if your staff thinks you're a micromanager, and you are because for some reason you think you maybe want to know more about what they're doing that they think they need to share with you, then the bottom line is you just stop doing that. So again, two out of the 3 things that you get in feedback are good, and the one that's bad is generally easy to fix. That's why I spend so much time trying to convince people to take the action and do the BFA process, because the actual BFA and gathering the feedback via the assessments and making the discoveries and adjustments where necessary are actually pretty simple. So let's continue. By the way, I'm out on a hike, so every once in a while, if I sound a little winded, that's because I record these things sometimes while I'm out and about. So let's talk a little more about BFA and what it is. It's really a self-awareness process that helps us gain conscious knowledge, or makes us conscious of our character, our feelings, our motives, our desires, and so on. If any of you follow Gary Vaynerchuk, or Gary Vee as many call him, he defines self-awareness as one of the biggest challenges we face as professionals, and he acknowledged there was really no simple solution to gaining this self-awareness. And I think I have a solution for you to gain this self-awareness by, again, discovering your blind spots in the BFA process. As more background, I'm a researcher at heart, kind of a propeller head of sorts that likes to dig deep into topics and then come back up and simplify them, with metaphors and analogies and acronyms and such, just to make them easier to understand and easier to implement and also easier to remember, which is a key issue here. Having these thoughts when you need them on the tip of your tongue is really important. I suppose you could think of this audio as really me trying to make the point of the importance of BFA, getting the, addressing blind spots via feedback gained through assessments, because actually gaining this feedback and addressing these blind spots isn't that difficult, and I'll explain that later, or maybe in another audio. But if you're a fan of Greek mythology, you've obviously heard the phrase or the statement, know thyself, which carries a self-awareness theme. I think originally a number of people lay claim to saying that the first time, but generally back when first recognized, it was used as a way of thinking or saying that you should know your place in the grand order of things, and over time it evolved a bit to be more of a warning to pay attention to the opinion of the magnitude. I guess that's the opinion of others, and that's a good way. It's a good way to look at it. We need to know what others think about us, because we're really not good judges. We aren't really good at observing ourselves. So the question is, why aren't we good at observing ourselves? Well, we just seem to be able to observe others, but not ourselves. And then we're certainly not out asking people, hey, what do you think when you hear my name? Or anything like that. So we're not proactive in asking for it. And then people around us who might contribute or tell us or give us that important feedback usually aren't going to come in and, tell us that we have these issues, especially if you're in a position of authority. Nobody's going to come in and say, hey, boss, hey, great overview of the vision today, but guess, by the way, none of us know how the hell to get where you want us to go, because you don't give us enough information to do our jobs. Can you imagine? That actually has happened to some of my clients in the past. And then fourth, who takes the time to do these surveys? I don't know. My guess is fewer than 1 in 10 professionals ever go out and do a 360 branding survey run professionally and analyzed professionally by an organization. Matter of fact, some people have told me it's closer to 1 in 100. So I'll just say it's somewhere between 1 in 10 and 1 in 100, and maybe that's you. What do you really know about yourself? Let's talk a little bit about branding surveys, which are one of the 5 pillars in my program. Just to sort of recap that, I look at personality or personality type, brand, which I'm going to talk about here in a second, and mindset, which I think I've talked about in another audio, and then visibility, how you're seen by others, and whether you're sort of above and below the line, as far as your visibility, how many people know who you are outside of your community, your current community, and then lastly, just the whole issue of journey. So let's take a quick, maybe we'll take a quick peek here at branding. I think I'll wrap this up on the topic of this issue of a brand survey and how little we know about ourselves, and a little history about the many branding surveys that I've run. And the background is that if I were to ask you today, what are your top 3 brand characteristics? And I took that information and then ran a full 360 survey and analyzed the data, here's what the findings would be. So there's a 90% chance that one of the 3 that you stated in your 3 that you estimated will be in the top 3 of the survey results. One of the 3 you stated will be in the survey results, but not in the top 3. And guess what? One of the 3 you provided isn't even mentioned, or not mentioned more than a couple of times in the survey. So what that means is the 3 things that you think are your top 3 brand characteristics, only one of them is correct. Now that's pretty frightening if you think about it, because we tend to work to support what we think is our identity and how others perceive us. And if it turns out most of you don't really understand how others perceive you, your reputation and such, that's a problem. So this Coach Steve Frenzinger over and out. I'll wrap up this session for now to try to keep it under 10 minutes here, so that it can be hopefully a useful audio or podcast for you to listen to at some point. And I'll do more of these. If you want to give me some feedback, feel free. I love answering questions related to these topics. My mind is kind of wired to answer questions and tell stories. So I look forward to your thoughts. Over and out.